Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. Welcome to this Newton lecture series. It's my pleasure here. I'm not really speaking. I'm just going to be asking Yoky a lot of questions. And I really wanted to thank Yoky first off for spending time with us. She fought like 2 hours of traffic to come here to Berkeley to share with us her journey, her career journey, but also to share perspectives on the high-tech industry, where it's headed, and hopefully also to offer some sage words of advice to our students here today. So thanks very much, Yoky.
Oh yeah, thanks for letting me be here. Yeah,
great. So I'll start out maybe for the first half hour or so with some questions, and then we'll open it up to questions to the audience. Okay. So Yoky, Iklog sort of hinted at this, but we're both, when we were students, we would have been considered geeks, right? EECS.
Geeks or geeks?
Geeks.
Okay, got it.
And I was told that a lot of the students in this class are actually EECS, electrical engineering, computer science, or computer science majors. I'm just curious, is that true? Do we have a lot of EECS and CS? All right, all right, so we're in good company.
Yeah.
Right, all right. So why don't you maybe start out by telling us how you came to choose computer science as a field of study?
Yeah, again, thanks for letting me be here. It's incredibly exciting to be in this room with you, and then please, ask lots of questions, and then come talk to me afterwards as well. So I took a very unconventional route into EECS, even to Berkeley in many ways, that I wanted to become a professional tennis player. So I looked for the school that has kind of a high ranking in in tennis, and then applied, and I got in. And in terms of the major, I was uncertain except for the fact that I liked math and physics, and I started off as a math major. Then it was way too much theory. Then I went to physics, then also became really theoretical. I wasn't so into proofs. And then I switched a few more majors, and eventually ended up, and these things may not be possible these days, EECS is so competitive, but I got to putz around into different ones and eventually realized that I like building things, I like solving problems, I like robotics. There are a lot of different majors that I probably could have chosen, but EECS seemed like a great combination of both the hardware and software to be able to build the kind of things that I wanted to build in the future.
That's great. So robotics, is that kind of one key thing? I read that you were interested to be able to design and build a robot that could play tennis with you. Is that correct?
Correct. So as an undergrad, my tennis career kind of ended at Berkeley. Not Berkeley's fault, but I was very injury prone, and I had to think about what to do next. So without really understanding anything else about myself or what's out there in the world, I wanted to do something with tennis and something else that I knew well, which was engineering. And I thought, I could build a tennis robot that could play tennis with me, so I don't have to pick anybody else to play tennis with. I could just play with this thing on the other side of the tennis court. On the day that I wanted to be challenged, I would just crank up just a little bit on the AI side, and outsmart me just a little bit, but not too badly, right? And then on the days that I'm kind of down because I failed on a test or something, I crank it way down, right? And then I have a great time against this player. So that's kind of the thing that I wanted to build, and then that really was the entry. And one of the professors who's still here, Ron Fearing, was the one who, I knocked on the door and basically said, I want to build a tennis buddy for myself. And he didn't laugh, and then he said, okay, go to Corey Hall on the 3rd floor and join my lab, and then talk to this grad student. It's like, okay. So that was the beginning of my robotics career.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great story. So you took a lot of classes here at UC Berkeley in different departments. Are there any courses that you think, looking back, really made a big difference in your own career to prepare you well for it?
I think so. I really liked CS150. I liked EE 192. So 150 was, I think,
computer architecture.
Yeah, the first class that I really liked this hardware-software combo that I started to really understand what it meant. I can tell you that I didn't like CS60B, which a lot of you probably have taken. There's the, about this? 61B is the one they take I don't remember, but it was a lot of foos and bars.
Foo bars.
And then I had to write a lot of codes with foos and bars, and I just didn't do so well with foos and bars. I don't know what it is, but So, but yeah, and then EE 192 was actually a robotic contest. It was just starting up, and we built a maze, and then we had a prey and a predator, and then we had to sort of switch buttons to see if you can catch up to the other robot, and that was really fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, today we still have EE 192. We have cars that, I guess, try to navigate a crooked path as quickly as possible. And actually, we've had internationally competing competitive teams from that course.
Wow, that's great. You know, what I like is sort of applications that come in a little early in the curriculum. I think that's then how you can see like all this math and everything, that abstract things that you're learning start to make sense.
Great.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to continue on after you graduated? Because you could have had I'm sure you had lots of job opportunities finishing with a bachelor's degree. What made you decide to continue and do research in grad school and then eventually to become a professor?
Yeah, so there's the truth answer and there's a great answer.
We want the truth, right?
It's adventure book. Which one would you like?
Truth or?
All right, both. All right, the truth, well, the great story, let's start with that. The great story is that I loved robotics, and it's actually true too. I love robotics so much, I could not possibly imagine not pursuing robotics. I applied to other robotics companies, there weren't that many. And MIT and other places, including Berkeley, were building incredible robots that I absolutely had to pursue, and so that I could one day change the world with robots. So that's mostly true. And then the real truth and is that I wasn't like most of you. I felt like much less educated about what's really out in the world. I didn't know any better. I was simply following my own passion, which was tennis, and robot was fun. And people around me said, oh, you might have enough grade to get into grad school. I'm like, oh, what do I do in grad school? You can do robotics. Oh, that's cool. Then I applied and I got in and I went. And instead of, you know, I felt, now I look back and see a lot of incredible graduate students who are, undergraduate students who are articulate and can explain why they want to go where they want to go. I feel like I wasn't like that, and I kind of kept following. And then now, when undergraduate students come to me and ask for advice and say, should I get a PhD? And I say, why? And they say, because I think that's going to be good. I get paid more. I'm like, no, that doesn't work. So now I'm like, now I know what I know. I advise people sometimes to not go to grad school unless they are going for the right reasons. But I certainly didn't go for the right reason at first.
But it turned out well for you. How about becoming a professor? Was that something you planned? Or?
Okay. So by the time I was trying to become a professor, I was slightly wiser. So in grad school, I had a bit of a transformation of just wanting to build myself a robot and only could see myself to I could see a little bit about how the world works and what's important for life, and that change was happening. So by the time I finished my PhD at MIT, and then I realized that what I was trying to do, around then I was trying to combine neuroscience and robotics as a way to help people live better lives. So instead of a robot that could play tennis with me alone, the same skills, AI and a robot and a neuroscience that I picked up along the way at MIT, could actually help people who had disabilities to be able to move their body better, to learn to do things a lot better. And I thought, whoa, fantastic. So that's what I want to do in my career. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but this is in the, just the turn of the century kind of time. And again, the technology wasn't quite ready to really transform. It still may not be, but transform the society with implantable chip that controls the prosthetic limb kind of the world, right? So I thought, in order to change the world, I have to push the scientific boundary instead of starting companies or to join a company in that domain. And also, I wanted to do a lot of different things in my life because I realized my life is fairly long, hopefully. So that I wanted to try the research and really push that science and research, but I also wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do both, and then I could kind of choose what order and how I could fit it in. One thing I realized was that to become a professor, you have to have a continuous record of publications. And if you go in and work for an industry and trying to come back, it's much, much harder. But becoming an entrepreneur after you become a professor is a much, much easier path. So I thought about it very carefully and then decided to choose to become a professor first. But I always had in mind that I wanted to start my own company.
That's great. So while you were a professor at the University of Washington, I guess you became known for this field of neurobotics. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you received this very prestigious award, the MacArthur Award, where in the technical fields we call this the Genius Award, right? Very, very coveted award. A lot of money, but maybe I would like to ask you, what did meeting that award mean to you, and how did it help you with your career?
Yeah, just to put this in a perspective, it's extremely prestigious, but the selection process is not like Nobel Prize, highly selective process. Well, it must be highly selective. How about this? It's all secretive. So nomination happened in complete confidence, and then people seem to vet for you in the background. The only thing that happens when you receive this award is get a phone call. And when they call, they say, hello, we're calling from MacArthur Foundation, and this is the only phone call you will receive, no string attached, and just to tell you that you received this award. And don't worry, money will start to flow into your bank account, and you'll never hear from us again. It's like a really, really interesting award.
It's a great award.
Yeah, it is a great award, isn't it?
Great honor, yes.
Yeah, but so, how somebody was kind enough to nominate me to just go through the process, I have no idea. But I am just incredibly humbled to have received this award. And when I look around at other people who received this award, and then there are some folks in your department, in your college as well, they're amazing people. And I say, wow, how could I belong in that class? But it's wonderful. But what this award has meant to me is more about me inside than anything external. I was a woman in engineering, and then at Berkeley, when I was going through Berkeley, often I was the only female student in the classroom. To the point that I go home and I look at myself in the mirror and go, oh, I'm a girl, right? It just got to the point that, so my self-image sort of started to change into a different person, and then, I wasn't the most confident. I'm like, man, I'm so smart. I wasn't like that at all. I just always felt like I'm a tennis player turned engineering student. Like, I don't know why I got into MIT. I don't know why people make me a professor. I think it's amazing. But inside, I always had this insecurity. I still do. But I did a lot. And this award has allowed me to come out of the shell a little bit and say, maybe I'm okay. That, maybe it's okay that maybe if I say some things, people might learn something that's useful. Maybe I should speak a little more. And in those ways, I was enabled. And I think so that I'm extremely thankful for the award for enabling me.
Well, we're very proud of you. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Speaking of awards, patents, I guess Professor Sidhu mentioned. So in case the people in the audience aren't aware, Yoky has over 250 awarded patents, right?
He said 400.
Well, he was talking about us combined together. So you can do the math and you can see I have fewer patents than she does.
I was getting excited for a second. Oh, all right, okay. So you have tons too. Maybe I should get
Not a ton, fewer than you. So
it's a contest, I know it.
No, it's not. We don't compete.
Just kidding.
So, but working in industry, how important have the patents been to you, maybe comparing as a researcher in a university versus in industry?
Interesting. The importance of patent, I don't know, I might not have the right answer, though, you might be looking for something else, but the importance of patents was huge as a kid. Like, my kids are like, Mommy, you have a patent? Oh, my God, you're like an inventor, right? It's like incredible. And then, undergrad, grad students, and I got a couple patents, and like super exciting, like going through the tech transfer office. But I think those things have changed over time a little bit and understood how patents are utilized. For startups, how many patents do you file? Sometimes they're almost like counting beans a little bit. Oh, your startup has about, 35 patents? That's well, I'm pretty amazing, to like, well, you haven't filed any patents, like your focus is in the wrong place, right? Like in a way, and then also in the larger companies, patents are traded at the growth level. Like, I'll buy your company for $1 billion because you got 1,000 patents in this area, right? So I think I'm starting to have this a little bit of a tainted, unfortunate, what's really amazing about patent a little bit. But there are some key patents that certainly have changed the world, how we protected certain companies, or money to flow from one direction to another that are so pivotal. I live in a world where I work in home automations, security, health. These ideas have been around for 50 years. The technology has been a little behind, so the patents and then publications been around for so much. So the kind of patents that I own are great, and some are pivotal, but many of them are small marbles that allowed us to ship the product in a way that nobody else can. But it's not like, if you put an occupancy sensor by the door, then you can prevent burglar from coming in. Like really, I don't know what it is, but some really conceptual, pivotal patents. Those are not the ones that I have necessarily. So I'm sorry, it's a complicated answer, but patents are great, especially if you can get large claims. So being an inventor and then having those is great. Tech transfer office has been incredible all my life in all universities that I've been at. Yeah, but at the same time, they're going to be trading cards once you're in a world of sea of patents. So like when I hear when I think I have 350 patents or something these days, but I kept track. I sort of lost track of patents because the meaning of the patent has kind of changed over time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, talking about startup companies, maybe you could share with us what was it like at Nest being, there so early and up to its acquisition.
Yeah, Nest. So I was actually at Google. I quit academia and then to join Google to start Google X. So I was a co-founder at Google X when I joined Nest. The reason for joining Nest, instead of staying at Google at the time, was to learn how to build consumer products. Being a professor, I felt that it was too far from everyday people. And I was building prosthetic device that could control by thoughts, right? Like that's incredible, yet I wasn't doing this for people every day. So I went to Google thinking that it was closer to real people. But Google X still is a moonshot place, and I love Google X, but it was still too far from those people that I wanted to be with. So when the opportunity came, there were two founders. One of them was my student from Carnegie Mellon. He and I bumped into each other, and then we started sketching something on a paper, and then realized that he needs me, I need him, and then I can actually learn how to build consumer product from scratch to the day that it's on the shelf of Best Buy, Target, and all of that in less than a year. And I thought, oh my God, I have no idea. That's one skill I don't have. Nobody taught me this skill. I have to learn this. So I jumped. And where I jumped was a small garage in Palo Alto. Floor wasn't even completely even, and you kind of wheelie chair, and then they kind of roll to one place, kind of place. But it was super satisfying experience of learning something that I had no idea how to do. I have shed many beliefs that I've had in academia of how I thought the world worked, what I thought was important. I learned machine learning, and I knew that advanced machine learning, but in consumer products, most advanced machine learning will not work. Maybe it's obvious when you think about it. If you put the most advanced, most amazing thing, and that's not fully reliable, the product is not great, right? So you have to, the wrong word, dumb it down to put it in a consumer product. Dumbing down wasn't enough. Dumb it down further to the point that I was ashamed of using the word like learning. To the point that marketing people said this is called Nest Learning Thermostat. I'm like, no, don't use the word learning. That's embarrassing. But it learns. It learns. I've changed too. But anyway, so I think those are serious learning moments of how to make products that millions of people, billions of people can use on an everyday basis and don't break. that has the incredible collaboration point with the consumer, exactly what I want to learn, right? Something that people can't live without. Your phone, how could you possibly imagine the world that you didn't have this before? You now cannot live without it. A lot of people feel the same way about Nest Learning Smart Thermostat for people who own homes and trying to save energy. That kind of an emotion and a collaboration with humans, with technology, is something that I've absolutely learned through that experience, and I'm really thankful for that experience. So 4 years before the acquisition happened was just so fun. Every day, every day. Actually, I haven't even had Christmas free for 4 years because it's so intense at startup. Just to make that thing successful, right? It's your baby. You gotta deliver it. You gotta make it successful. So that was, I don't know. Now I look back and then I built family around me. All those people that I worked so hard with for those years are still my best friends. And we support each other in a way that we did during building product, but now we do for other things. So, oh my gosh, what an experience. You all should do it. Then we got bought to Google, second time back into Google. Yeah, and then when, acquisitions, if you already have a company and going through an acquisition or have an acquisition opportunity in the future or get acquired, feel free to come and talk to me. Those things are also not how you might imagine sometimes from the outside. It's more incredible than you might imagine, but also it's horrible, terrifying. It's just, I would never recommend to do it at the same time. It's really not what one might think. And also, depending on which company you get acquired by, that company's philosophy and who they are, you should really understand. You shouldn't always go for the money. You should always go for who are they, what's the culture of this company, and then would I be happy having this job for a while, because they're gonna put this thing called golden handcuff, right, for 4 years or something, and you probably shouldn't leave because that's the length of time they spend to pay you for that amount of work that you've done at startup. So, I think it was a really interesting experience for me.
That's wonderful. So what is it like now being back at Google?
Yeah, third time back.
Google Health.
Yeah, so apparently when I came back for the third time to Google, I was the 16th person to come back for the third time, but at the same time, apparently somebody who came back for the 6th time. So I still have more revolving doors of Google that I have to do. Yeah, so now I'm back. Actually, I came back, so I left. Just can I fill in a little bit of the gap?
Sure,
so
please.
the gap. So after Google Google didn't get acquired. Nest got acquired to Google. A year later, just as a lot of people might go through a startup to a large company, shock of, wait a second, this is not the same startup. It happened to me, and also I wanted to learn different way of building consumer product from different people, not just from people who are at Nest. So I jumped, and a couple different things happened, and I'll, as needed, we'll fill in that later. But then after all of that, and I did tell everybody, I said, I'll be back, like 3 years. And I think when you need me again, I'll come back. And I went back in 2 years. At that point, I was looking for a company that would allow me to pursue making life better and then people's life healthier. And Nest was already in people's home, making people's life in many ways a better place, saved energy, more secure, safer, and then healthier was something that I really wanted to do. So it just made sense as a place to come back. And now, fast forwarding, since I got back to this Google-bound Nest, it's been 2 years. And Nest is no longer outside of Google. I don't know if you know Google and Alphabet structure. It's really complicated. But so Google is now part of Alphabet. And Alphabet has other bet companies, such as Berkeley, that does health, Nest, that does home automation or home technology. There are a whole bunch of companies like that that are outside, and then the whole thing is called Alphabet. And all those bet companies have graduation moments. Some companies might IPO, some companies may get bought by other companies, and then Nest had one of those paths, which was to graduate back into Google. So that happened last year. So Nest, which was operating as if it's a startup with its own P&L and then separately, has now become entirely part of Google. And so now my title changed from Nest CTO to Google Vice President. But my mission hasn't changed, and what I've been working on hasn't really changed much from that perspective. So I'm still trying to make sure that people can live healthier lives, primarily from home angle, but in a very holistically. Yeah, so that's what I do now.
That's great. So in terms of maybe some insights for our students here, you mentioned how do you avoid burning bridges when you leave one place and to make sure that they'll welcome you back with open arms? Did you just say, "I'll be back"?
Yeah, just say, make sure I might come back. No, that's kidding. I think the thing is, well, if you do good things, they kind of always will take you back. Maybe I shouldn't say such thing, but if you're an outstanding employee and you contribute a lot, they want you to stay. So I think I've tried to be that person no matter where I went. It's not that every time I left, I never thought I'd come back to that company.
Really?
Right, yeah. So it's not like, I might come back. Well, I said that to my friends because I liked them as friends. But I didn't necessarily think that I'd go back. And I wanted to sort of improve or change my life in this kind of upward trajectory. So why would I go back to that place again? So that's sort of what I thought. But Nest is an incredibly fascinating company. Google, large company like Google, is really interesting as an animal. And maybe there are people here who study those large companies, but Google is basically a collection of a whole bunch of startups with incredibly smart people all together trying to go for different amazing missions. So it's an exciting place, and then there are so many entry points back to Google. Not that I'm competing with the person who came back for the 6th time, but I think it's a really fun place to be.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our students like to work at Google, right? So it's good to know that there are many entry points.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of things already for your career, but I've learned that you have your own foundation, Yoky Works. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So Yoky Works is almost like a product of the MacArthur Award. Again, sometimes I'm not a very mature person, so people ask questions and I'm like, that's a good idea. So when I received an award and then people gave me money, and they said, what are you going to do with the money? And I thought, boy, I haven't thought about that. So one of the things I thought about through that experience was that I was a professor then, and I wasn't able to, again, reach the people that I wanted to reach. I was building technology for people with learning differences or physical disability, and I wasn't doing it. But when we're professors, we get emails from people saying, hey, is your technology applicable for my son? And I was getting those emails on almost daily basis around that time. Again, thanks to MacArthur giving the visibility where people could find somebody like me who's doing that research. And I thought, what a great way to help those people on a daily basis. So I started a foundation to respond to those emails and says, yes, I might be able to help you, and then hear their problems or what they think I might be able to solve for them. Then coming up with an engineering solution, and then having a team of volunteers who might be therapists to engineers to coders to come up with a solution for that person. So some examples. Somebody came and said, hey, my girl lost her right arm. She was a swimmer. She wants to swim like the way she used to, but there's nothing quite that can meet the time that she used to be able to meet. Is there something that you can build? So I had a team of volunteers, students, of mechanical engineering student to electrical engineering students, and they were in a machine shop and able to build basically a waterproof, extra hand extension that she could use for swimming. Another example was somebody who had Parkinson's, and then she said that when she cut, her hands weren't stable enough or strong enough anymore to be able to cut meat in restaurants. And she wanted to get help. She always had to ask the waiter to cut the meat, and then she started to feel embarrassed, so she stopped eating meat in restaurants. And she tried those automatic cutting knife thing, but it made really horrible sound, like in a restaurant. And so she said she didn't like that either. So we made her a quiet, automatically meat cutting knife. We had another girl who was cerebral palsy, so she wasn't able to control her body very well. And she was, basically, we could tell that she was a smart girl who was locked inside. She was on a wheelchair, and she could only kind of move and then point to 4 corners, pretty much says bathroom, pain, hungry, like essentials. That's all she could do. And we thought, you know, in the background as we were talking to her, she was actually able to flip through pictures as she was bored, like a typical 7-year-old. Parents are just talking up to us and about something. And I thought, okay, she has dexterity, some sort of a control if she wants to. Maybe we can utilize it. So we built a sort of customized wheelchair mount thing, which based on her combination of movements, it could type different letters. So if she, like bonk, bonk, it's letter A, bonk, 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 it's letter B, right? And then over time, she could actually learn to use this device, and then we teamed up with like a therapist who can work with her on a daily basis to train those things. So anyway, you can imagine a lot of different applications. So that was really the starting point. And then now Yoky Works is really trying to focus more on the software aspect of it, not as much on the building side, even though that's another aspect that we can absolutely continue, but just based on my limited amount of time, we're starting to focus much more on the learning disability aspect. And starting with like a reading disability aspect and dyslexia and so forth. So those are the aspects that we have some innovative ideas that we want to implement. So it's just really exciting to have that way of, one person at a time is okay, but I think that's a great way to feel the impact that we can have.
Absolutely. Great experience for the students too who work on these projects.
Yes, absolutely. So volunteers, quite a lot of them are students.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, in terms of your career, I heard you recently joined the board of Hewlett-Packard. Is that right? That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How do you like your role there, and how do you think you came about to be invited to join the board?
So it just happened last week, meaning that the announcement was official. So thanks for noticing. And then board of directors. I don't know how many people are familiar with board of directors in general, but there's a group of people who help advise the CEO, and then apparently the only job sometimes I hear is the board is like to hire and fire CEO. So that's what they say, but it seems a little more complicated than that. And I also have not gone to my first board meeting, so stay tuned. Next time we can talk about it. But in the process, I can tell you about the little bit of the process of getting on a board, or why would I even care to be on the board. So, with the combination of things that I've done in my life, whether it's in academia or startup or large companies, all those things operate because in this complexity of human society and human emotion and human egos, and as the organization becomes larger, those things get even more tangled up. So, as I, became a vice president and then really overseeing so many things, that there's so much to learn about how to govern a large entity and how to manage that, from incredibly exciting things about the future. What should this company invest in, to how do we deal with this incredibly difficult problems that doesn't feel solvable? And I think it's hard to learn that in your day-to-day operating job, because you have your own area that you're managing. But if you're a board member in a fairly large public company, you get to learn those things in a very different way. And that gives me the opportunity to grow as who I am in my operating role. But also, one day if I wanted to have a different role, I think it gives that opportunity to take those roles as well. So that's what I wanted to do. So at some point, about 2 years ago, I decided that I want to join one public board. But then I'm on a hyper-optimizer. I was telling you about this earlier. Yes, but once I come up with the criteria of what I want, maybe you guys have seek for a spouse or husband or wife or whatever it might be, that you make that list, right? He has to have green eyes and then all this list. So I made that list for what I wanted for the board seat, which was I have 4 kids under age 13, so I didn't want to travel too often. Usually board meetings happen about 4 to 5 times a year, and it's about 2 days long. And if it's in Dubai, the whole week is goodbye because of the travel. And doing that 5 times a year is a lot of time. So I had a criteria, like 1, it had to be close. It had to be less than 2 hours of flight, ideally driving distance. 2, the board, I could not be the only woman, even though, of course, I'd like to transform those boards that are all men, but I wanted that environment of the board to be full of people that I felt would listen to me and then could transform. And 3, very humble board members that I felt that I could relate to and really, truly learn from. And of course, the company has a very interesting trajectory. It's an upward trajectory company, has lots of opportunities in the places where I can contribute. So I kind of made a list. And I was really picky. And it took me some time. But once you're on a board, you stay there for like a decade or 2 sometimes. So I wanted to be extremely picky, and I knew that I only had capacity to do 1. So this was a process that was going on for the last whole year.
Wow.
And then finally, HP, which is 2.5 miles from my house. Incredible. I actually drive right in front of it whenever I drop my kids off to school, so it's even closer than my kids' school. The CEO is like the most humble person I met. I just can't believe somebody so amazing can run such a large company. And I was moved by that. And the same thing with every board member that I met. I wanted to be a friend. I wanted to hang out with these people. So there, and then also HP as a company, they reinvented themselves like 3 times. They took risks and then split the company in half. And this woman CEO who now has retired, but have really transformed the company. And I thought there's no other company at this time who have approached me that is a better fit than HP.
That's great. Good story. All right. Before I hand it over to the students, maybe you've done so much, and how do you balance your time? To distribute your time to all the different things that are in your life.
Yeah, I don't balance. I mean, it's horrible. So just to, when people say, how do you do it? And I said, I can't. So I think the hardest 2 biggest parts are probably the family and work. And then work is the Google work, not the, nonprofit or all of that. And it's completely impossible is what I decided,
Okay.
But if you ask me if I do it again, I would do it again, and I recommend that you have a whole lot of kids and take an incredibly hard job at the same time, because I'm doing it even though it's impossible and it's really hard and I drop balls all the time. You can do it, and I'm happy that I'm doing it. So I'm not balancing, but what are the things that I do? You have to look at, I'm just reading a book, so I can even quote from the book. I think if day to day, if you look at every single day, I'll step back. The book I'm reading is called 7 Habits of
Highly Effective People?
Highly Effective People. Ta-da! And I'm on chapter 3, which is habit 3. And it said that, God, I'm going off tangent. It says that you should think of 2 by 2, then 4 quadrants, and says important things to do, not important things to do, urgent things to do, and not urgent things to do, and figure out which quadrant you live on often. Urgent things that's important, you tend to kind of get to it because it's important and urgent. But people often mistake which quadrant between urgent but not important or important but not urgent. People tend to spend a whole lot of more time on urgent but not important than important but not urgent. And that's something that really resonated when I read it and thought, okay, so in order to balance my life, and one more trick that the book said. Book said, if you only plan single day at a time, you tend to only live in that urgent boxes. If you plan a whole week at a time, you will get to some of those important but not urgent things because you have a slightly longer point of view. So that's what I do with my attempt at balancing. So if you look at everyday basis, it's not balanced at all, right? Today, I've been away from home since 6 a.m. till it's going to be probably 10:30 p.m. Horrible mother. Oh, my God. It's like horrible. But there are days I do the opposite. So I'm a horrible person for Google, but I'm a good mother. And those balance have to come with a little bit of a compromise of both, and it cannot happen at the daily scale.
Good advice. All right, I'd like to open it up to questions from the audience.
We ask people just to introduce themselves.
Okay, please introduce yourselves before asking a question, and please wait for the.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. My name is Mahek. I'm a senior. I was wondering, what is your vision for Google Health now? What's the most exciting thing you're working on?
So I can't talk too much about the company's direction yet for multiple reasons. One, it's brand new. As of January 7, 2019, which is very recent, we hired a lead person to lead the effort for health for Google. And the person is incredible, but the person just arrived, and he is trying to come up with a great overarching strategy together. So stay tuned. But what I can say is that I have built and grown up in Nest environment where I find, and also I'm a mom, where I find home to be such an important part, and I love to have that as an anchoring point to take care of people.
Hi, my name is Teddy. So you said you joined Nest to gain experience with creating widely used products, and I was wondering how you've used those skills since Nest.
Good question. So we at Nest, we ended up building many products together. So, the first product was the thermostat, but then we built a smoke detector, we built a security system, we built a doorbell, and then there are a lot of products that we built and so utilize those skills. So that little gap that I had, I was a CEO of a startup, and I went to Apple, and then back where I am, like in every opportunity, I feel that I am now using the new lens of what does it mean to build consumer products. And it's been extremely helpful. And then actually, even in a nonprofit world or advising companies, now I can see when people are thinking more from the research angle or the patent angle or different angles, which may not quite be able to become consumer products, I'm able to see those things much more clearly.
Got a question way in the back.
Hi. Thanks for coming and talking. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about the difference between working at a software company versus a hardware company. Like a lot of advice for starting tech companies is, get a minimum viable product and then get users. But when your product is a hardware product, it seems a lot more difficult to get a minimum viable product because you need a supply chain. And so could you just talk a little bit about that, as your experience compared to this?
Sorry, I had a bit of a hard time
Sure.
hearing.
Yeah, could you just talk about the difference between software companies versus hardware companies in terms of getting off the ground and making a minimum viable product?
Interesting. Yeah, so I think things are changing from that perspective. If people asked 15 years ago and said, would you invest in a hardware company? A lot of people would have said no. And then if we asked 2 years ago, you had to have been doing some hardware to invest in it. So hardware, so just to tell the difference, right? Like software, like an app, those, or any software, the amount of investment you have to make is slightly less. Building a hardware product, you have to have the supply chain and the ops, and then it just, it takes longer. It's just a whole lot more complications. You can't just sell it only online. You have to have potentially retails and involvement. So one is more complex. One, we could say a little easier, or that's one way to look at it. Because of the amount of investment and the return on the software used to be high, so that was an opportunity for a lot of VC to invest as well. Hardware, with a new, more like a hope around IoT and then other things, that has also become doable, and it's sticky. So one of the things hardware company gets is, for example, a company like Nest. People can talk about controlling other people's thermostat in a software and a services. It's just not as sticky. The moment you put that thing on a wall and then as a hardware, people are using Nest devices, and then we can then sell services on top. They're likely to utilize the services that we sell more than other people's services. So build that sticky layer through the hardware, and people start to realize that. So the hardware companies start to actually become something to do. And even Google X, the initial 2009 motto that Larry Page and Sergey had was, let's create an entity which is based on atom, 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 where physical things get built, not just in electrons. So, you know, there's definitely that hardware is important part is there. To complicate the story so that I'm sorry that I don't have the perfect answer for at the end is that these days, hardware is important but also becoming a commodity, right? So in the world where the machine learning is taking off and then the services and all those models that you can even layer on top of other people's hardware, and hardware, like I'll take security camera as an example because I know about that field pretty well. Camera, there, you know, you can do amazing, you can build amazing camera for a really expensive price, but then another company come with slightly less price, or another company come with slightly less price. So it became a race to the bottom in terms of the price with the hardware. So even the hardware companies are now forced to come up with a plan where they sell hardware for relatively cheap, and then what are the ways that they can monetize on top. So, you know, I think that's the climate of all of those things and what sells and how to make money in a business model is constantly changing out there. If I were to start a next company, I still would probably anchor in some hardware. I don't know if I do every supply chain on my own. I might actually outsource to some CMs and OEMs that who know this better, so I don't have to build it from scratch. But having that surface that is branded as mine to be able to really use that, it still gives an advantage. So that's my personal view.
Hi there, Yoky.
Hi.
I'm Liam. I'm a second year. Thank you for coming down to speak with us. Relating back to what you said about, you know, grad school's not for everybody, and you shouldn't necessarily just rush into it. What do you say to undergraduates who think that even, you know, being in college for 4 years hinders their ability to go off into the world and do something? You know, what do you say to undergraduates who are looking to drop out?
Wow, I love that question. I don't know if microphone was working. Could you guys all hear the questions? Okay. So should you drop out of long 4-year college to do startup? You know, there are a lot of people who succeed doing that in an amazing way. I applaud that. If my son came in and asked me that, I would say, please finish college first. Your life is really long, and then you can do this later. And if your startup fails, make sure that you have that door that you can come back to college and finish. Don't abandon that, because college degree is really important. And I mean, you're here, so I think you'll be able to get into somewhere and then finish college, likely. But at the same time, I have now, you know, through my nonprofit as well as, you know, interactions with nannies or other folks who are stuck in a certain area and then unable to move up to get the better job because they didn't finish college, possibly because they took an opportunity that failed or they had a kid early. There are all kinds of reasons some people end up dropping out of college, and then they can get stuck in that loop. So I would make sure that if the opportunity that Facebook is waiting for you, go for it. But make sure that you do finish college at some point, because that would open even additional doors. And your life is really long. Yeah. But I don't want to inhibit you from becoming Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if I want to be him. So maybe not exactly. Bill Gates, how's that?
Hi, Yoky. I'm Spencer, and as a tennis player and EECS major myself, I'm just kind of interested in how the tennis robot worked. If you could go into brief detail about the mechanics of it and just say how successful it was. Yeah, it just kind of interests me a lot. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So robotics is a field that we thought we can build a RoboCop in the 80s, and then it just hasn't quite happened yet. So, I started building a humanoid robot in the 90s, and it got to a point where it could, it looked like a human. It had a head and then 2 cameras coming out, and shoulders, elbows, and then fingers. Actually, I only built 4 fingers. But actually 1 thumb and 3 fingers. And then, but it could grab some objects, but not really. And certainly, in a certain situations, like some other lab have managed around the same time to be able to play ping pong. So that space of moving around and then do hand-eye coordination and hit ping pong balls. So that was kind of the state of the art. And my robot got to the point where it became a few journal papers. It had great dexterous hand, which could pick up some objects and then learn that this is the wrong grasping strategies and all of that. But that's about as far as I went. There are a lot of companies out there who are still trying to pursue that dream of having an amazing, not quite tennis buddy maybe, but a ball machine or a ball picker-upper. I really applaud those people for doing it to enhance being able to play tennis even more. So, but it's not as advanced as it should be. There's some company like Babolat and I came up with like a sensor embedded in a tennis racket, and then you can actually play it, and then you can get statistics. Those are also great as well. But overall, I think there's so many opportunities in the sports and technology, whether it's tennis or anything else, that should come together. Whether sometimes it's in the hardware space, sometimes it is more in the analytics kind of space, sometimes it's in the learning and the teaching space. Man, I think that's really a fun area. If I clone myself 7 times, I would definitely do that as one of my opportunities.
Hi, my name is Maddie. Thank you first of all for coming. You talked about this a couple times in your talk today, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how some of the obstacles you might have faced as a woman in tech, especially the obstacles that you might not have expected along your journey in multiple different career paths from academia to startup to industry.
Okay. So again, the mic wasn't working as well, so just a repeat of some of the obstacles that I might have experienced being a woman in tech and academia into the industries and all of that. So one of the things that really saved me was my ignorance. And now by then you're thinking like, what is this person? Like she doesn't even know when to go to grad school and all those things. But like a little bit of that ignorance that I was the only one, or that people weren't listening to me, or that my voice was too small. Like I sort of ignored it and then didn't worry too much about it. And I didn't even notice sometimes. And I think that was blessing. I have a lot of people now that I help, now I want to help those people who are worried about those things. So I know that there are people who are much more mature than I was and then notice those things and then feel the pain when they're not being heard or their voice is overrun by different voices or things like that. So now I pay attention to what happens to me too a little bit more than it happens, right? So in terms of, overall arching advice is that the world is changing. People are paying attention. It's okay. Don't be scared to have that voice. And then find somebody who will pull you up. Find a person who have done this to be an advocate for you, sometimes in your meetings. And say, so, I'm sorry, what was your name? Patty. So, Maddie? Yeah. Okay, Maddie, like, what did you just say, right? Or like what are you thinking, Maddie? Like, I think having those people embedded around you is hugely helpful. So I think those little things will help you get pulled up. Also, people like to be mentors in many ways. So approaching some people and saying that, can you help? I'm struggling with these things, or they, even if they didn't like you at first, they will like you and they will try to help you. And I think those are other things that's really helpful to do. Academia, I think there's a better person to ask about the academia and the women part. I would defer to that. In industry, it's not about who you are. It's about what the product is. So it's a little more ruthless sometimes. In academia, I felt a lot more of the warmness because it's a lot more of a place of nurturing, trying to make students better students and then better, people. And then I felt that as a faculty too. And then there's that, mutual respect. Yeah, but I think that's why industries sometimes suffer a whole lot more in terms of the gender balance too. Yeah. Oh.
Wow. Okay. I think from my interaction, well, my experience with people in the industry, that is true. It is a harsher workplace in the industry. And so that's one reason I was thinking, what can we do to better prepare women to be resilient and to persist in technical roles once they enter the industry. But I think now what's also important is to help educate everybody, so that includes the men, how we can better support each other to be inclusive, to advocate for each other, no matter if you're male or female. I think that's the only way. My hope is that when you all graduate and go out in the industry or academia, that you will be advocates for making sure that everybody's voices are heard. And you can set an example for the people that are more senior than you presently in the industry today, because I think that's what's needed to transform the industry and also to maximize the benefit of diversity for innovation, and creating better products that are going to, make the world a better place for everybody.
Yeah, but I think, you guys are in a better place. I'm like so hopeful for even my kids that the world is much more inclusive. It will become much more inclusive because of all the fights that people are putting up and then just changing the world. And it's not just the female thing, right? It's the ethnicity background. It's just that, there are so many different inclusions and then, that we're talking about. And then it's just really exciting. So hopefully by the time you're, my age and changing the world, and then it's going to be, products are designed, research are done in such a way those biases are not as much there.
Hi, my name is Yash. Thank you for speaking today. My question to you is, so you said that you learned some things in academia which didn't, as a professor and in research, which didn't turn out to be so practical in the real world or in industry. So could you share some insights or examples of some of those things?
Some of those examples of...
Or insights to what worked out, or to what you learned in academia or in research which didn't work out so well in industry.
Oh, some insights that was good in academia that didn't work in industry?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Yeah. True, there's probably quite a lot of that too. So I think, when I was talking a little bit earlier about it was the objective function is very different. So one, in academia, especially if you're a graduate student, then you're giving some bars, right? Like you have to take this many classes and then have to get B or better. You have to publish this many papers that are accepted in these places. Then you try to kind of make sure that you meet those criteria. And and then when you're a professor trying to get tenure, they're also kind of have metrics that they built over time. And then if you really reverse engineer, says, why do they even have those metrics? Because they want you to have research impact in a place where people read your work, the most, for example. And which is very different from companies, public companies, at the end of the day, in many ways, want the company to make the money, right? So I think because those things are so different, what works here doesn't work over here. And so that has been my struggle. I'm very much of I'm a mission-driven person. I want to change how people live, which I could do it here, or I could do it there. But if I were to really push something interesting enough that nobody has ever published to go into this product, it doesn't work because the kind of things I publish tend to be something that doesn't work for millions of products. If it works for millions of products, it's not worth writing in a journal paper, right? But the kind of diligence and on the last mile, like last little bit of making sure nothing breaks, and then that level is not required here either, right? So I think there's like some very interesting thing, and then I've actually once talked about this thing called the Valley of Death. And it's well published, but I think research and then product translation is super duper hard. And many companies have tried to do this, right? That many actually companies do have this. Like Microsoft has a research wing. And, but why, if there's a valley of death in the middle, that research stuff is not so useful right away for product? Well, some things do successfully translate, maybe 2%. But maybe it's a little bit of marketing tool. Maybe, maybe I should talk to Satya first about that. But, that they're to say, we're very much on a cutting edge. We can do research, we collaborate with universities. That's great. And then some of those trickling things is super important to advance technology for everybody as well. But that barrier is really, really different. And then so, I think if you have the desire or like in the fortunate situation to be able to learn both, being exposed to both and really seeing the difference will put you to become a person who can see the opportunity on both sides, thinks that here should probably move over here, and thinks on this side should move over here. So there are things that can translate back and forth. But most of the things I learned in a consumer product doesn't work in terms of academic thinking.
I want to thank both of you for being so open with everybody here. If it's possible, students like to take the final 10 minutes to kind of approach you and ask any questions, if that's okay with both of you. So thank you both. This was an incredible way to kick off.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.